Most people have never stopped to ask themselves what they actually want their retirement to look like. They just default to whatever their parents did or what society tells them to do. And today we are blowing that up. So we're going to walk through 6 retirement philosophies and one uncomfortable reality that nobody talks about. None of them are right, none of them are wrong, but one of them just might be exactly right for you. All right, hope that you enjoy this episode. You are listening to the Weekly Wealth Podcast. My name is David Chudyk, and I am a certified financial planner. This podcast is business owners, the high net worth, and the mass affluent to think differently about their money and also to learn differently about their money. These are the conversations that I'm having in my wealth management practice on a daily basis. As a financial advisor, I get a lot of questions about retirement. Like, when can I retire? How much money can I retire on? How much money can I spend? And I want to ask you, what is your concept of retirement? What do you think about? Is it that you stop working and maybe you play golf every day? Is it maybe you move to Florida? Are you going to volunteer? Or maybe you actually have visions of health declining and having limited physical capabilities. So let's think about what our thoughts about retirement are. Now, if you're a believer like me, and if you're not, just stick with me here, it might make sense. You'll know that work is a calling and not a curse. So Genesis 2:15 says God placed man in the garden to, quote, work it and keep it. Proverbs is loaded with the virtue of diligence. So Proverbs 13:4, the soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, while the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. And then in the New Testament, Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. And then Paul is very blunt in 2 Thessalonians 3:10, if anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat. Idleness is not a reward, it is a warning. So I've dealt with some clients and they really looked forward to retiring. Maybe they didn't enjoy their career, maybe they didn't like what they did, and they were looking forward to just stopping working. And I want to caution you, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but what I am saying is that work, especially maybe for the guys, maybe to a fault, gives us a purpose. Now, if you listen to my podcast, you know I love talking about being purposeful, and you know that I love talking about behavioral finance. And I always say that I believe that how we handle our money should positively impact our lives and the lives of those around us. In the spirit of being purposeful, I'm going to talk about some philosophies of retirement, and I'll tell you which one I like for me personally. But I think that this is something that you and the people that you care about should be thinking about with regard to your potential retirement, if your retirement will even exist. So the first philosophy that I like to talk about with my clients, and this is the one that is my personal philosophy, is that I am striving to get to a place where work is optional. So this will give me the freedom to choose when I work, how much I work, who I work with. So my personal goal isn't to stop working. It's to reach a point where I can choose and not have to. And this might resonate with the business owners, right? Because I'm building a business and I want to build a business to the point where it's sellable, but I can also choose to keep it and work as much or as little as I want. The difference between owning a business and having a business that owns me. Right? So if it can't run without me, then I don't own a business. I just have a job. But if I spend my time between now and this point, and if I develop leadership within my organization, if I develop processes and procedures and all of that, then my business will create recurring revenue, have document systems, and have a team that doesn't depend on me daily. And here's my payoff. Because maybe when I'm in my 60s and 70s, I might feel like, hey, I am still healthy and I'm still blessed to have the mental, cognitive abilities, and I just want to keep working. Maybe I know I have some friends and family members that I've lost or people that are no longer able to work. So for me personally, I think at that time, I'm going to feel like I want to keep working because I want to be a good steward of the body that I have. So what do you think about my philosophy number 1 for retirement, which is to work towards having work being optional, but not being required? My second philosophy that I see is to retire as early as possible. And this is where people aggressively save and invest, often large percentages of their income to retire maybe as early as your 30 or 40s, but really kind of in their 50s and early 60s are what I see mostly. And this is to reclaim the time while they're still young and healthy. Now, the appeal of this is they'll have the maximum years of freedom while energy and health are at their peak. They can escape burnout before it breaks them, and they can have time for passion projects, travel, and deep family investments. Now, of course, we come with some challenges with this one, right? Because it would require extreme lifestyle sacrifice during the saving years, unless, of course, you're just inherently wealthy. Most people aren't wired for that. The sequence of returns, let's say a market crash in year one of the retirement, can be devastating. The identity crisis that we talked about before, many early retirees struggle with purpose, structure, and social connection, and work provides more than just a paycheck. So it might seem like a great idea if you were retired at age 40 or 45 or 50, but hey, what would you really do with your days? Now, healthcare costs before Medicare eligibility at 65 are significant and often underestimated. So if you do work for a big company, oftentimes you have some sort of group health insurance, but if you're retired, you'll have to pay for that on your own. And then there's a one more year syndrome. So fear keeps people working longer than what they plan. So hey, we're almost there, but I'm just going to work one more year because I'm not sure if I should take the plunge. I'm just going to work one more year, and then all of a sudden you end up at 65 or so. So here's your gut check on this one. Are you running towards something, or are you running away from your current situation? Because retirement won't fix a life that you haven't designed. And I would just ask you to ask yourself, if you're in your 30s and 40s and you're thinking I just can't do this anymore, I want to retire as soon as I can, maybe, just maybe, you need to reevaluate where you are. Maybe there's a change that you need to make in your career so that the idea of working won't be so unpalatable to you. Or maybe, just maybe, you are wired to retire at an early age. Now, just keep in mind, the earlier you retire, the bigger a pool of assets that you will need in order to sustain your lifestyle. All right? So not that retiring early is a bad thing. Remember, none of these are good. None of these are bad. There are some that are right for you. There are some that are wrong for you. But if you want to retire early, you're either going to need to live off of less money, or you are going to have to save a lot of money to support your lifestyle. All right, let me know what you think about number 2. Have you heard about the die with zero concept? And this comes from a book that Bill Perkins wrote. But the big idea here is to stop hoarding money for the future that may never come. You can maximize life experiences while you're alive and physically able. And if you die with money left, you traded hours of your life for wealth you never used. Now, here's some things to think about with this. Now, number 1, the core argument, dying with $1 million unspent means you work for free. You traded irreplaceable time for money that you never enjoyed. Now, yes, that may be true, but also and it may or may not be true, but if it's true that you want to leave money to heirs, it might give you joy to know that there will be some money left behind for your loved ones when you pass away. Now, memory dividends, experiences you invest in early pay emotional returns for decades. A trip with your kids at 10 is worth more than the same trip when they're 35. Philosophy number 4, which is front-loading your retirement, is somewhat similar to the die with zero, but the big idea here is that even if you retire at a traditional age, your first decade is your most physically capable window, so don't save the best for last. So the physical reality is your energy, your mobility, and your health will decline with age. I mean, that's just something that we can't get around. Adventures that are possible at age 65 may simply not be possible at 80. So the active phase of retirement typically runs from retirement age through the mid-70s, and that's your window to use it. So a common mistake that people make is living so frugally during early retirement to, quote, make the money last, end quote, that they miss the years when they could actually enjoy it the most. So budgeting and being purposeful, right? Maybe on your own or working with a financial advisor, If you budget more for the early years, not less, your spending will naturally taper in your later years anyway. So this pairs naturally in a way with a die with zero, but it doesn't require spending down to nothing, just spending earlier with more intention. So practical examples here, again, bucket list travel, adventure experience, active trips with grandchildren. These all have a shelf life, and your financial accounts don't care when you spend, but your body does. So what's on your bucket list that requires a healthy body? Are you planning to do these things first, or are you saving them for someday? Remember, none of us are promised tomorrow, so why not think about front-loading our retirement, maybe spending a little bit more money during the 60s and early 70s while we can, and then potentially living a little bit more frugally if we have to later on. Now, a devil's advocate, as we get older in age in our late 70s and 80s, if we do have long-term care issues, they can get expensive. So you might actually want to go back to a couple episodes ago and listen to my long-term care episode where we talked about some types of long-term care and how to pay for it. But yes, as we get older, we spend less money on doing things and adventures because we're physically unable, but we may need to spend more money on our care. So none of these are all positive and all negative, and I'm here to give you the pros and the cons. A lot of times during the financial planning process, my client will ask me like, what do you think about XYZ strategy? Or what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And very often I tell them that we don't need to pick a one or the other. Sometimes you can have some of both. So philosophy number 5 for retirement that maybe you should consider is a phased out or gradual retirement. And this is kind of like a slow fade. So retirement doesn't have to be a light switch. Deliberately step back from full-time work over several years. You can keep some income. And when you're keeping income, that means you're not taking money from your retirement accounts, which means they'll last longer. You can keep purpose. You can keep identity intact while reclaiming more and more of your time. So this is extremely common among business owners and professionals and a deeply underrated strategy. What it looks like in practice is maybe 3-day work weeks, shifting to a consulting or an advisory role, transitioning leadership to a successor while staying on board at a high level. For business owners, phased retirement often increases business value by reducing owner dependency, which directly ties back to philosophy number 1. Now, our psychological benefit here is you can avoid that identity cliff that hits many retirees who stop cold turkey. I know golf and tennis and all the things that we like doing, they sound awesome, but if that's all you had to do all day, every day, number 1, it kind of gets expensive. So if you're not inherently wealthy, it can be tough. And number 2, you can get bored of anything. So work can provide structure, social connection, and meeting. You don't have to blow all of that up at once. Financially, this will extend the runway. Even a part-time income means drawing less from savings in the early years. But the one pitfall is this requires intentional boundary setting. Without it, quote, gradually, it can quietly become never. So could you design your business or career so that in 5 years you're working half the time for 70% of the income? What would have to be true for that to happen? That's a great question, isn't it? So could you? Possibly? Maybe? Could you design your business or career that you can work 50% less time, but still make 70% of the income? All of a sudden, working seems kind of cool when you're not working as much, right? And if you're intentional, if you're purposeful, you might just have that opportunity. Let's step away from the podcast for just a moment. One of the services that I offer to my clients is help planning to exit their business. So as business owners, you're familiar with the challenges and complexities that come with steering your company day to day, but have you considered the transformative power of picturing your end game? So imagine having a destination so clear in your mind that every decision you make naturally aligns with it. To download our free ebook called The Endgame, go to my website, www.weeklywealthpodcast.com/endgame. That's www.weeklywealthpodcast.com/endgame.
And okay, now let's get back to the podcast.
And here is the last philosophy that we're going to talk about, and that is the I'll work until I can't work anymore philosophy, and that's the lifelong worker. So the idea here is that some people genuinely love what they do and they have no desire to stop. Work is part of their identity, their purpose. It gives them community and it gives them structure. And yes, that is completely valid. So for a lot of people, work only provides a paycheck, but for some people, work provides much more than a paycheck. That meaning the mental engagement, social connection, daily routine. And for many people, removing this abruptly causes more harm than good. So research consistently shows that people with purpose and active engagement tend to live longer and healthy lives. Loving your work is a genuine gift, especially when it connects to biblical framing that we opened with. The critical distinction, working because you love it versus working because you have to, that's important. So they may look identical from the outside, but they feel completely different from the inside. So the honest planning problem here is that if this is your philosophy, you still need a financial safety net for when or if the choice is taken from you, whether it be a health event, a disability, an industry shift, a layoff, anything like that. So this philosophy is most powerful when it overlaps with philosophy 1, loving your work and having the option to walk away. That's really a sweet spot. But here's your gut check, right? If your health forced you to stop tomorrow, would your family be okay? Loving your work is a blessing, but it's not a retirement plan. So let's also make sure that we're taking the right financial steps. Let's make sure we're building the retirement accounts. Let's make sure that if the pensions are there, they're being used properly. And let's make sure that we are managing our money to the fullest. Let's not forget that these philosophies are not mutually exclusive. Most people blend 2 or 3 of them, and that is perfectly fine. The common thread across all of them, however, is intentionality or purposefulness. The people who are happiness in retirement are the ones who designed it on purpose. Now, your philosophies will likely evolve over seasons of life. That's okay. Maybe you have a job or career that just doesn't suit you, and you're in that, I just want to retire as soon as possible. But then you move into a different position that's much more suitable to you. You might decide to work longer. So the goal is just to keep asking the question. And remember, the worst retirement plan is a default. Work until 65 or 70 or 80, because that's just what most people do, and then figure out, or even worse, because I didn't plan financially. So if listening to this episode gave you more questions than answers, maybe you are not sure which of the philosophies or which combination of the philosophies are yours. Maybe you're not sure what your financial decisions need to be based on your philosophies. Because remember, we talk a lot about quantitative and qualitative decisions. Why don't you do this? Go to www.weeklywealthpodcast.com/vision. That's www.weeklywealthpodcast.com/vision. Let's spend 10 minutes. Let's talk about some of your questions. Let's see if we can point you in the right direction. And I think that your vision deserves 10 minutes, don't you? All right, everybody. Until next episode, I wish everybody a blessed week.
The information contained herein, included but not limited to research, market valuations, calculations, estimates, and other materials obtained from Parallel Financial and other sources are believed to be reliable. However, Parallel Financial does not warrant its accuracy or completeness. These materials are provided for informational purposes only and should not be used for or construed as an offer to sell or a solicitation of an offer to buy any security. Past performance is not indicative of any future results.
And here's this week's bonus segment. Let's not let the accidental philosophy, which is that you're forced to work, be your plan. So nearly half of Americans have less than $10,000 saved for retirement. Social Security was never designed to be a full retirement income. Now, this isn't a character flaw. There are many paths here. No one taught them, life interrupted, or they just assumed that the future me would handle it. So the emotional weight is real. Shame, fear, and loss of dignity, they're all worth acknowledging with grace. But I don't share this to scare you. I share it because every single philosophy we talked about requires one thing, a plan. The best time to start was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. So again, if you have any questions or you just want to chat, go to www.weeklywealthpodcast.com/vision. That's www.weeklywealthpodcast.com/vision. And let's have a 10-minute chat. Have a great week, everybody.